This boss guy, he started moving towards me with a crutch. He said, "Oh, she's the one." He said, "Boys, flip her over and rape her." I screamed. I said, "Don't do this, I'm a virgin." I don't know why I said that. I was born in former Yugoslavia in the 80s, in Skopje actually. My parents moved when I was a baby to what is now known as Serbia. Loads of fields and little mountains and loads of sort of animals, farmers. How can I describe it? It's like the world that we should all know, really, because it's quite peaceful and authentic. Not many people are lucky enough to have that kind of childhood that I had. We were very poor, but we were rich in love and respect. My dad was a doctor and my mom professor of languages. So I grew up with two people that were doing everything possible to add value to others. This one day, my dad and I were having a chat. He said, "Lurata, what do you wish to become when you grow older?" And I didn't hesitate. I just said, "Oh, Dad, I'd like to be a doctor just like you." And he said, "But why? Why a doctor?" I said, "Because like you, I want to help people." And I remember this big, deep sigh. He said, "Lurata, if helping people is what you want, you don't have to be a doctor and become a doctor. It's not the only way. You can find a way to help people." And I was like, "God, my dad doesn't believe in me. This is just, I'm doing so well at school. Why my dad doesn't believe in me?" But it wasn't him not believing in me. It was the fact that he was seeing the bigger picture and the troubles that were about to hit us. My whole country, as Yugoslavia, was splitting up, and it really started quite early on in the 80s. But I was so young, I don't fully remember everything. But growing up towards the age of like 11 and so on, when you become a bit more aware of your surroundings and troubles or unrest, I think for me that's when it really became scary, watching on my black and white TV what was happening in Bosnia, like the war with Serbia. So, because let's just paint a picture. Yugoslavia had so many different states. It had Slovenia, it had Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Northern Macedonia. And so Slovenia split up first. They split up with any worries, which was great. And then when Croatia decided to do the same, Serbia turned up the heat with Croatia. So they went to war. That got really messy. And Croatia and Bosnia are on the border with each other. So then Serbia turned the heat up on Bosnia and killed the Muslims and massacred. I mean, it was a huge massacres that have been televised all over the news across the world. And from then on, we knew that, okay, well, this war is becoming, it's a civil war and it's just getting worse. The Serbian army was targeting us in as a Serbian village, because the majority of the people in our village, if not all, spoke Albanian and they were Muslims. They practiced Muslim religion. One evening, when the troubles really completely threw our world upside down, we got taken out of our houses to be marched into this sort of, I say, fold or crease of the mountains. Imagine the mountains sort of, and then, you know, you go through, and then as you go into the mountain, just surprisingly, it opens up into this field amongst all these mountains. It's still there. We weren't sure what was happening. We just thought we were being marched into the mountains, maybe sent into Kosovo and just sort of cleared away from the area. But we were so wrong. And when we reached into the road from our house, there was loads of people walking the same direction, the elderly, the children, babies crying. And it was really frightening because you could hear the soldiers shouting and screaming, the footsteps of people, and this the noise that the crowd makes, and the coughing and the crying and the whinginess, and because there was children, obviously, the pregnant women. And it was chilly, it was cold. And I just remember clinging on to my mum for dear life, and as we walk up towards the mountain, and my dad decided to search for his brother, and his brother was waiting actually at the gate, and we reunited and we walked together, and they were whispering, but we weren't even allowed to whisper to each other. It was like, everybody keep quiet. Once we reached there, the soldiers were sort of guarding us all around and marching orders, all in Serbian. My uncle is saying to my dad, look, I need to go negotiate. And my dad is saying, brother, just stay put, like, be quiet for once. And so he approached one of the soldiers not far from us. And in Serbian, he said, look, he said, I don't know what your intentions are. And he said, whatever it is, like, what do you mean my intentions are? We're going to kill you all. We're going to do the biggest massacre that's ever been, bigger than the ones in Bosnia. We could hear all of this, and people started panicking and screaming, and I'm like, oh my God, we are dying. So all of a sudden, everybody's talking, oh my God, they're here to shoot us, and the panic was raising. I just remember my whole body going cold because we were about to die. My uncle, he realized they were about to kill us. We all realized we were about to die. And he decided to negotiate with the soldiers. And I was just hearing this. He was saying, look, if you do this massacre, you will be hunted down like they have done, and they will not leave you guys alone. So why don't you just spare the town? What have they done to you? I'll give you so much wealth, you can run away. When my uncle said, I have a lot of wealth, he said, oh yeah, let's see it. He's like, fine, let's go to my house. And uncle turned around and said to us, I'm just going to show them how much wealth I have. I'm trying to save the town. He bribed them. My mom volunteered to go with him. And she's my best friend. It's all I have. And I know my dad is there, and my aunt, you know, my uncle's wife, and, you know, everyone is there, the rest of the family. But it's like my mom. It's like, Mom, don't leave me. We were treated like prisoners, really, like, you know, marched to be killed and then just left uncertain. Time went on and it was getting cold, and my dad said, well, we have to make a move and just see, maybe they've killed uncle and your mum, but we need to go and discover what had happened. So we slowly, sheepishly started moving towards the town again, the village. And we walked. I couldn't wait to get to my uncle's house just to see, is mum really dead and my uncle, or are they still alive? We reached eventually, only to find my uncle and my mum both crying. They're holding their heads literally on their hands and thinking that the whole entire village has been killed anyway, regardless of my uncle's wealth that was, you know, given to the soldiers to bribe for exchange to save the town. When we walked in, they were so happy to see us, and they started crying even more. I was so puzzled what I witnessed in my uncle's garden. There was so many holes, and when I say holes, like big holes that had been opened up. And I didn't know, it looked like a graveyard that has been opened. And I'm looking, and we were like careful where we're stepping because loads of different holes. And I'm looking, and I'm just listening to the conversation with my dad and my uncle. And my dad said, what the heck is going on? He said, that's where I kept my wealth. He had gold, he had cash, everything he had, he was holding it all underground. Yeah, that was quite significant for me because it was pretty much my uncle's last days. And then he passed away, just naturally passed away. I think the stress, or I don't know what happened really to him, but my uncle's passing came a real shock to everyone. He was the hero. He saved us. After that, it was never the same for us again. Our soldiers, the Serbian soldiers, decided to torment us, and they were raping and destroying, and it was just complete nightmare. My dad had been in the village. He came back home in panic. It's like, Lurata, get your bag. And we didn't have much. So for me, it was like one pair of trousers and off I go. And a couple of t-shirts or whatever I had. And my mum got my bag ready, and she's like, what's going on? he said, we need to escape. Lurata needs to escape because the soldiers are raping and tormenting women, young women. So I can't watch that. I said, Mom, you come with me, because I don't know where I'm going. My dad said, you'll be fine. If you cross the mountain, this mountain that we live, the house and then the mountain that we had near us, it would lead you immediately into Kosovo if you just follow the right path. When I reached the other side, immediately as I came down the mountain, there was quite of a main road that was coming from other villages within Kosovo. I saw this bus and I waved him down. After a long travel on different buses, I managed to reach Pristina. And once I reached Pristina, which is the capital of Kosovo now, it was almost dark and like after hours, curfew hours. So you're not really supposed to be on the streets. It was police hours. So I walked around because I didn't know where I was going. I ended up landing at this bar because I heard noise. And I thought, okay, well, there is life here because nobody's on the streets. So I was a bit frightened because it's like, what's going on? Nobody's on the streets. Am I in the wrong place? But when I heard this noise at the bar, I decided to go and open the door. And I looked around and it was literally everyone in there was from United Nations, different uniforms, different color, navy blue with blue helmets, and then the army. I was instantly under the impression that uniform meant danger because of what I've just witnessed. I decided to walk in. I was desperate to have a glass of water. I was so thirsty. I went to the barman and I said, could I have a glass of water? And he gave me, and he's like, what are you doing on the streets? You know, he was very puzzled to see me. He knew like something wasn't right, but he gave me the glass of water and then he didn't make anything of it. I decided to sit right at the front of the door, just duck down, and I started crying. I was really unsure what to do next. I was lost. Seconds later, the door opens and I just raised my eyes to look because I was ducked down, and I see this two strong, what I now know as police officers served for UN, Peter and Brian, with a translator. And I looked at them and I'm thinking, okay, so like what the heck is going to happen next? You know, I was really worried. And they're speaking in English. I couldn't understand a word that was saying. And the translator is saying, they are asking, what are you doing on the streets? I said, well, I'm from Serbia and I need shelter. I need to go to the Red Cross. Peter and Brian decides to give me shelter. I was really hesitant to go with them because I didn't speak the language. I didn't know them and they were not my nation. And not that my nation was good at that point. They were tormenting us. But it's one of those things. If I can't trust my nation, how can I trust other nations? You know, this kind of debate in my head. But because I had nowhere to go, because of the desperation that I needed shelter, I was cold, I was frightened, and they seemed so nice. I thought, what's the worst that could happen, you know?
And how old were you at this time?
I was turning 18, I believe, because I escaped around late on my 17, so turning almost 18. We created the most unlikely friendship. And I will cherish that time with us so much because they were godsend. I needed them. I needed them so much. And I'm forever grateful what they did. They literally risked their own position with the UN to have a civilian living under their roof, being cared for. Not only did they care for me, they never kept me as a secret. They told their boss, their commander, they all agreed to keep me safe. They understood the danger that I was in. So they introduced me to the entire UN. I was there for quite some time. And one day I became too comfortable. I thought if I just grab a magazine or a newspaper, it would be such a good idea for me to try and read something in my spare time when they were at work, because when I didn't do anything, I was going a bit crazy and worried and panic attacks and thinking, are they still alive? Is mum and dad still alive? So in order to distract myself, I thought if I read a magazine or a newspaper, I'll be okay, you know. And so left the door open of the apartment, and I thought, I'm just going to get a magazine. As I walked onto the road, on the pavement, this van, black van, it just skids in front of my legs, so in front of me, literally blocked my path. Some guys came out of the van, and they put this thing over my head. It was a black thing, but I don't know what it was. It's like a hood, like a sack per se. I didn't have time. It was just such a quick movement that I didn't have time to process it. And they grabbed me and they shoved me into the van. It just literally threw me on the floor of the van. They're calling me every name under the sun. And I'm lying there, obviously with a thing over my head. And I'm thinking, am I having a nightmare? Can I wake myself up? I wanted to wake up so much because I thought it was a nightmare. This is not happening. It can't be. It's weird. It's unusual. And when you have nightmares, you sort of can wake yourself up. I don't know if anyone has ever had this experience, but I still do, and I can wake myself up. And that's what I wanted to do, wake up. But I was awake. It was happening, and it was happening fast. They pulled me out, still can't see anything. My feet are dragging behind, and they literally yanked me through my armpits. And I'm just being dragged, pulled into this building. I could just hear doors slamming, and I was really frightened. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? When they took off my hoodie, down at aside from me, away from me in this room, it was this man that was waiting for me. So here I am on my knees. This thing is off my head, and I'm looking, and I'm looking at everyone, and I'm very confused. And this boss guy, he started moving towards me with a crutch. He said, "Oh, she's the one." And I'm thinking, I'm the one? Like, who am I? Like, how come everybody knows me? What do you mean I'm the one? How can I be the one for what? He says, she's the one then, right, okay. He said, boys, flip her over and rape her. He just gives the order. So I've gone from my knees, being on my knees, trembling, to literally I'm flipped on my back now, pinned down to the floor like a starfish, completely opened up. They were holding me down. And they started ripping off all my clothes. I think I couldn't breathe. I was so frightened, and they were so vicious and so aggressive towards me. The boss was still coming towards me, and I could hear him just sort of approaching, his voice. I'm looking at the ceiling and I'm crying, I'm screaming. And he wanted to see the rape. I didn't know what I'd done to deserve that. I was thinking, what the heck is happening? And I screamed. I said, don't do this, I'm a virgin. I don't know why I said that. I was just really frightened. And I said it, I didn't know it was going to save me. I just said it because I was genuinely really frightened to be raped. I've never been with a guy before. I've never kissed a guy, let alone have sex with someone, and I was about to be raped. And the boss heard. The guys, they weren't hearing what I was saying, but the boss heard. He said, guys, stop the rape. And he had to literally physically pull one of them off me. He said, have you not heard her? She's a virgin. Boys, we have stumbled across a huge cargo. I'm still there, like trembling. I could hear all this cargo, and I'm thinking, what the heck? This is something. Is this goods, export, import? I was so naive. I didn't know what they meant. What is cargo? Humans are a cargo now? And he said, just cover her up. Come on, we've got lots of work to do with this one. And what he meant, we have a big job with her, like loads of work, meant they had to groom me. Grooming for them meant they couldn't spoil me, so they couldn't perform sexual acts with me because they had to keep me this virgin, innocent girl, because they had sold me to the highest bidder eventually. And so in the process of selling me, they had to groom me to show me sexual acts, what to expect, how to behave, what to do. I had to learn. It was a speedy, like a lesson for me on this month or so with them. It was so much to learn. It was so disgusting what I had to learn. Yeah, they introduced me to his lover that he had with him at all times. It was this woman. And at this house they were keeping me, it's not even a house, it's a flat. It was on the 4th floor in the central of Pristina. That's where I was being trained. And it was 3 of us in bed. It was absolutely vile. It was him, his lover, and I. So anything had ever happened sexually, I had to witness everything. So I went from literally not knowing anything to literally watching adults performing sex, violent sex, raping other girls, whilst I was made to watch. I think I say this and I can't say it loud enough. A lot of things don't bother me anymore. I really have healed. But the one thing that really still, and somebody said to me, I need to forgive myself because I always have felt like I was the cause that these girls got raped, because I had to learn these sexual acts, then maybe those girls wouldn't have been raped if I didn't have to learn, if I knew everything. And for me, seeing girls being raped when they were completely unconscious, it's quite inhumane thing to witness. And as a youngster, it really destroyed my innocence. You know, I had guns being held at me. So for me, it was really tough not to, if I was feeling sick, and at times I became sick, it was quite intense to watch this kind of cruelty. Eventually, after so much training, when they said, yeah, she's ready, we're gonna then ship her, I was scared because I knew I was about to disappear from the face of the earth. I was with these people. And the further I went from Peter and Brian's kind of location, or my mum and dad's location, the unlikelihood that I would ever make it alive. They quite bluntly said what was going to happen to me, because they've done this to many girls, and they were psychologically abusing me by telling me information and what's to come. They found it hilarious. They found it, they were playing games, basically. They found it funny. They wanted to see my reaction. It was a real mess up in the head to be told, oh yeah, we've sold you to the highest bidder, and when they are done with you, they will return you to us, and then we'll put you to general kind of public for prostitution. Once everybody's done with you and you no longer have any value left in you, because ultimately during the process they'll drug you, they'll do all these things, then we'll take your organs, the vital organs, and they sell it to the black market. So their plan was, we drove to the south of Kosovo, to the border with Albania. When we reached the border, I was sitting at the back with 2 guards on each side, and the boss was in the front with the driver. And they stopped us at the border. So I'm thinking, oh my God, if only they knew that I was being held here against my will, maybe they could help me. I couldn't help but think these thoughts. The border was patrolled by the Italian troops, UN troops, and the translator said, the border is shut, we are not going to open, so you guys need to return back wherever you came from. The boss was pushing with the translators, like, come on, open the border, we really need to go, we have meetings, you know, he was pushing back. So the police officer is saying the border is shut and we don't know when we're going to reopen. I feel so lucky that border was shut. Had we made that crossing, I wouldn't be here to tell the story, literally. By the time we reached the apartment where they were holding me initially, on the hallway, which was only a small hallway, we just entered it. There was 2 doors when you enter. There was a metal door from the outside and wood door from the inside. So both doors were shut. We are on the corridor. The boss is standing, and I'm just standing because I wasn't allowed to do anything until they told me. And above the boss's head was a clock, a round clock. And that's when I noticed it was midnight. That clock stays with me because it was so significant, the time and the clicking of that time. And the boss is talking to someone on the phone, and the guard is around us. There was a really young guard, one of the security guards, and then the other ones. They were all claiming to be ex-soldiers of Kosovo. And the boss gets really angry on the phone. And he puts the phone down and he turns around to the guys around him and he's like, boys, we need to leave. He said, you, to the youngest one, rape her, kill her, whatever we do, she's more trouble than she's worth it. Now, I looked at the time when he said this and it's just gone past midnight and I'm thinking, I had all this time in the world and all of a sudden I'm dying any second now. I mean, I'm going to be raped and killed. It was instant that I'm dying. And the thought, we all know we are dying all the time. We're all going to die, right? But if you knew your exact time of death, it's quite frightening, and thank God we don't know it. And I looked at the time and I thought, oh my God, my poor mom and dad, they're never going to know what's happened to me. The boss left and he got so angry, slammed the doors. And I looked at this guy that was left with me and I still remember his face, probably my age, maybe a tiny bit older. And I said, I know, you're going to kill me. I said, I'm so frightened. I'm talking to him. And he's like, yeah, you heard the boss. I got to do what I got to do. I said, okay, I know. I said, just please. I said, just do it nicely. I'm so scared. And I said, I'm just thinking about my mom and dad, and so I'm explaining this to him. He's like, just stop, don't talk. I said, please let me pray. I just need to pray. I don't really know why I needed to pray. I think I just wanted to buy myself time. I was so scared of dying. I was surprised that the guy granted me that last wish. It was really the last wish for me, because there was nothing else to ask for that could be granted. So I said, fine. He said, you do your prayer. He said, I need to go to the bathroom. And by that point, as soon as he said, you can do your prayer, I was already on the ground praying. These are my thoughts. Oh my God, if only I could go and find my mom and dad, tell my mom and dad I'm about to die. This guy is about to rape me and kill me, mom and dad. I love you so much. Don't worry, I'm going to die. I'm dead. I'm not disappearing. I don't want you to think I'm abandoning you. How weird is it to think you can go just tell your mom and dad you're about to die, but you're willing to come back. It was...
I'm so sorry.
I was so naive. My love for my parents was so strong. It always will be. I think for me, that is the biggest gift in life, is the love that they showed me and the love that I have for them. I wasn't even caring about dying myself anymore. It was more like, I need to deliver that message to my mom and dad so they know what had happened, so they don't wonder for the rest of their lives what happened to me. As I was having these thoughts, head down, eyes closed, I heard this cling, and the cling was on the table next to me, just sort of down that way. The guy that went to the toilet that was supposed to kill me, he left the gun and the keys on the table. So I'm thinking, what? I stood up so sheepishly and I'm like going to the table and I'm looking at the gun and the keys, 2 keys. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what do I do? You know, kid, I've never held a gun. I don't want the gun. But I picked up the keys very gently. So by the toilet is the door. I could hear him washing or doing something, and I just decided to slowly open the doors. I opened the first door. It's a wooden door, so it didn't make any noise. It was really quiet, and I'm like, yes, I've got one door. And I got the other key, which is a bit longer. So I'm trying to open it the wrong way and it just won't open. And I started panicking. So I started like pushing the door and it was making noise. The guy heard and he started shouting. At that point, because I was like, oh my God, I need to open the door. And as I did that, it just opened. This metal door with rails. And I almost sort of flew with the door forward. Oh my God, the sense of this door opening was like such a relief, but equally I was so scared because I could hear him behind me. He reached me and I turned around because he reached me. He tapped my shoulder. I turned around and he punched me so hard. I went flying onto the main road. And by this point, it was way after midnight. And I see this lights of a brake lights of a truck or of a big Jeep, which resembles, and which it was, a police Jeep. And it was identical to Peter and Brian's Jeep. So I saw that and I was like, oh my God, in my head, you know, quick thinking, and I started screaming. So the police officer that was parking the car, when he opened the door, he heard my scream and immediately started walking towards me. I could see him. The guy behind me, he had already gotten the gun before he even started following me downstairs. He started shooting at the police officer. And the police officer now is shooting. And I am caught in the middle, but I'm just crawling on the ground trying to reach the police officer. The moment I reached the police officer, he yanked me from the back. He just grabbed me on the back and he sort of pulled me all the way to his car, to his Jeep, and put me right at the front of the Jeep and opened the door. He reached in to get a walkie-talkie that is attached to the Jeep, and he was calling all units. The police officer was Italian. He called the stations. Within seconds, that area where we were, it was surrounded by United Nations. And I said, you need to go to the police station now and give an interview. And I think they went and they saw the apartment, they found the place. I don't know what they did. I have no idea what they did after that to the apartment. So we went to the police station and they set me down, started interviewing me in Albanian with the police officers from Kosovo. I just told them exactly what I knew, what I saw, what I witnessed. And obviously I was breaking down a lot because it was extremely emotional relief that I finally am with the police. And I couldn't believe my luck. After I finished my interview, this elderly police officer approaches me and he wants to hug me. He was about my dad's age. He said, could I hug you? I said, I just don't touch me. He started crying and I was really puzzled to see him cry because here I am being a witness for their own people of what they've done to me. He said, do you know that you are the only survivor to have ever come out of these people? We know what they are doing, but we can't bring them to justice. We can't arrest them because we don't have witnesses. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm the only witness. I really don't want to be the only witness. It's a lot of baggage, it got even scarier for me because now I'm like, I'm a target. And then by the time I finished the interview, it was 3 a.m. exactly in the morning, so early. He said, oh, where do we take you? Where were you taken from? I said, well, I've got Peter and Brian. I really wish to see them again. So they woke them up. And Peter was waiting for me on the door. He hugged me, got me inside. He stayed with me up. Obviously, I couldn't sleep after that anyway. He just put a blanket on me. We couldn't talk, so we stayed there in silence. And the next day, obviously, meant that I had to go back to Serbia because I was now a target. And if they catch me, they will assassinate me straight away because I was a witness. So when I reached the village, it was like a ghost town. You could see this like grayness in the air and this echo, this like silence but not silent, shooting still going on in the distance, the bombs that have gone off and the smoke, and it just felt like a ghost town. It was bizarre. And I thought, okay, well, there's no one around. I'm just going to creep into my mum and dad's house and hopefully they're still alive. I opened the door and they were in there. oh my God, I was so happy to see them. I was like, oh my God, you guys are alive. And I'm expecting the same from my mom, to be like, oh my God, you're back, thank God, how are you? I'm expecting all this like warm greeting, but none of that happened. And my mom instead, she was hysterical. She's like, you shouldn't have come back. Why did you come back? Next thing we know, we hear this big military truck that pulls into our garden. And so we come out of the basement because they came to us, they found us. They're pulling me away from my parents. My mum is screaming and crying. She's coming out into the garden. And I just remember my mum and dad, I hugged them so quickly. And I said, don't worry, I'll be okay, mum and dad, it's fine. So I'm hugging them and they're pulling me away. Got on the truck, in this big military truck. And I'm looking at the soldiers, they're just driving, talking in Serbian. And they drove not far, actually, very near my mum and dad's house, into the mountains. They offload me at this building. It's like, it didn't even look like the army base. During the war in Yugoslavia, in Serbia with all these other different states, the Serbian army, in fact, Milosevic at that time, because he's no longer with us, our president then, decided to recruit prisoners of war to make up the numbers for soldiers. So he had the regular army, which was legit and doing the duties as they are trained. And then they had these prisoners of war that were given power as army to do as they will with whoever they will. I gave my interview. I said, look, this is what had happened. This is why I went to Kosovo. I'm just explaining facts. They didn't believe me. So they started beating me up. They're beating me up to the point where they broke my nose. So that was really painful. And I started bleeding heavily through my nose. And then from the beating, I started losing teeth. They broke my teeth and they're still missing. And so I thought that was the worst that they could do. They said, okay, flip her over on the back. So I got flipped over facing the floor and I felt something hot. And then I looked, I'm just having a peek. It was this metal thing, really long. It had like a hashtag shape. It was so red, so bright red. I knew it was hot. It was something that they brand kettles with. And they branded my calf. They thought that if they do that, I would tell the truth. I don't remember what happened after that. I just blacked out because the pain, when the heat reached my skin, I felt it just before and then it was just like, boom, I was gone. So I instantly, when my conscious come back, I'm like panicking. I can't see because I'm swollen with my eyes almost closed. But equally, I could just about smell something quite musky and horrible and yucky and like rotten in there. I wasn't sure where I was. I can't see any light. And so I started panicking. So I became very frantic, hitting the walls and trying to find the door. So that moment was, even though I was in pain, I was still panicking and trying to scrape myself out of there with my bare hands. And I sort of gave up. I thought, oh, I'm buried alive. Nobody's coming. It became my living nightmare. It was, I had just been put in a solitary confinement where I was kept for 6 months. This room, people usually at my age would think of going to university and thinking about their life and getting diplomas and stuff. That was my university. It became my molding kind of place. It molded me, shaped me. It didn't go long before the soldiers were coming in and out of my room multiple times, multiple people, and sexually abusing me and physically beating me up and mentally abusing me. And once that happened for the first time, because up until that point, I managed to stay a virgin. And once they spoiled that for me, they took the very thing that I held so, everything that identified myself as just pure girl. Once that was taken away, I really didn't have any hope anymore. It was like, what more do I hold on to? My mom and dad know I've been taken, so I give up on wanting to make it through for them because they know I've been taken. And now my innocence has been taken away, the purity has been taken away, has been completely destroyed by monsters, men that would turn into monsters during the war. Because I had nothing else to do, I was stuck in these four walls, tiny, like you could touch all sides. It was so tiny, the grave-like. I would think of my mum's cooking, and I would think of my dad's, you know, just what he did and his work and his passion for helping people. I would think of my school and my mum's, you know, cooking, her smell, her ways, the weddings, this and that, you know, you name it, I thought about everything. The life was flashing back at me. It was like good memories. And I used my imagination as a way of escape, a way of freedom. I knew they can't take that away.
How did you get rescued?
My dad actually, he wasn't resting. He needed to find me. He didn't understand why I wasn't being returned back. So he had reached out to a police officer that he knew, a friend of his, because he was still helping all soldiers. His job, his duty was to help anyone, regardless of what they were doing to us. He still had to give aid. So he went and spoke to a police officer that he knew at that time. And he said, look, my daughter has been taken away. Is it possible she's still alive, or is she going to return? And the police officer said, look, we don't have her in the police station, but I'll speak to the soldiers and see, you know, if they still have her and why they're keeping her. Because my dad had said to him, it's been 6 months. I mean, is she dead? We need to know. The police officer spoke to the legal army and said, guys, are you holding a young girl? They said, not us, but the other army that's been the recruits of prisons. And the police officer said to him, well, look, can't you guys interfere? She needs to be returned home if she's still alive. The police officer gave my dad the news, and he said, we don't know how we're going to rescue her because we can't reason with these people. And my dad said, well, do you think maybe bribe them or something? Maybe that's what my brother did during the war, you know, He said, well, we can try if you got any money left. And my dad said, well, I don't have any money, but I'll ask in the village, the elderly, to see if we can gather some funds of some kind and to rescue my daughter. My dad gathered funds, and the police officer told him where I was being held, took my dad all the way to the building, and then he had to return. He couldn't interfere. And my dad approached them on his own, and my dad's face when he saw me being a doctor said it all. When I looked at him, when our eyes met, the first thing I said to my dad was, Dad, what took you so long?
How does it feel to be a survivor of human trafficking and kidnap?
Most of all, I feel super lucky. That's like, I can't stress that enough, how lucky a survivor will feel. Secondly, I realize I have a huge obligation now. I feel, and I have dedicated myself out of free will to be the voice of the ones that have been silent. For all the children that go missing, for all the people that go missing, it's become my greatest mission to raise awareness. But most of all, because I was so destroyed, I have learned so much love from it and kindness, and hence why I just want to really express the love and kindness I feel for any human race, for anyone, because it's only then, I think, through love and kindness we can heal others and heal ourselves. So yeah, it's quite privileged to be alive.
She, without any warning, she just took the razor and she started cutting my genitals. it's a different kind of pain. Like, you go into shock, and my body just became absolutely numb.